What's up, Mortgage Coach community? I am super pumped to have an unplugged conversation with Shayla Gifford. What's up, Shayla?
What's up, Dave Savage? I'm excited to be with you.
I'm excited to be with you, and I'm excited to hear what's happening in the trenches in your land. Now, you are in Reno now, right? You're like in home base, or Tahoe. You're in home base.
Yeah, we've transitioned to home base. We found a great Waldorf school in Truckee, California, which is just right over the border from Reno. And yeah, we feel really good about transitioning. Spent the last almost 3 years living overseas and doing international school and doing COVID in Europe. But yeah, I feel really content. I feel almost in a way like I want to be grounded, really, really rooted. So I love contrast. I like, feeling cooped up and like wanting to rage and go see the planet. And then now I kind of feel like we really want to have roots and kind of stay put for a while.
Cool. Well, first of all, there's a lot of new loan officers coming into the business, and a lot of people in the Mortgage Coach community know exactly who you are, what you've accomplished. But I would love to just do a minute or two on it, because I also think it's going to play well into what time it is in the industry. So real quick, just how long you've been doing this? Remember, you're talking to new loan officers. Like, I'm Shayla Gifford. Give us a minute on who you are if it's the first time a loan officer's watching you.
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Reno, Nevada. Got involved in this industry at 23 years old as a loan officer day one. I was handed, a phone and a rate sheet and just said, go get loans. I didn't have a lot of mentorship or leadership. I had no coaching. I certainly didn't have Mortgage Coach in this community and the influence of top producers in my life. But what I did have is an extraordinary drive and passion for serving people in this way. I really, at that time, Dave, was craving to find a career, something that I could really wholeheartedly put my whole self into and that made a difference that people actually needed. And so I love all parts of it. I like that it's technical. I'm definitely a nerd. I like spreadsheets and calculators and guidelines, and I love solving the puzzle. I like the technical aspect. I also love the emotional aspect, that it's very much a raw human business, that we are dealing with people at their best of times, worst of times, most freaked out of times. And then I love that this business requires a lot of leadership, that in order to do it at a high level, we must lead. We must show up as the example, be the example for not only our internal teams, most definitely our processors and any team that you build with loan officers or LOAs or operations staff, but definitely with those people that we serve, with our, realtor partners, the business community, whatever affiliations that we choose to have. So I love the combo of all of that. This industry still has me totally enraptured, waking up with vigor and just, excited to do it. So it's now 18 years later, I'm 41. I've got 2 daughters that are 11 and 8 years old. I'm married to just the coolest guy. I know anybody meets me is like, yeah, Shayla's awesome. And then they meet Galen. They're like, oh, Galen. So I've just had an amazing journey, Dave. The first 6 years of my career, I just worked solo. I never had an assistant. I never had a processor. I did everything, even up to the point of going to the escrow officer's office and signing the docs with the client. You could say that I was definitely a control freak, definitely workaholic. I spent every vacation on the computer and on the phone. There were times when the sky was falling, that I was, going in at 5 a.m, sometimes leaving at midnight. I was going door to door. I was getting on the news. I was putting flyers in people's mailboxes until I found out that was illegal. I was doing farms. I was handwriting letters to people. I mean, you name it. I've done a lot of the tactics to go out and get business, but I just had this drive and hunger. And then after 6 years, in approximately mid 2009, maybe a similar time to what we're in now, I don't know if you remember that time, the implodometer, where every day you went and looked like what mortgage company imploded or fell apart, and you watched the news and Lehman Brothers failed and this, all this kind of stuff was going on. The company I was working with ended up closing my office, and I was really at a crossroads because I was, at the time, I was the number one loan officer in that bank. And I'd sacrificed so much through that downturn because I had a lot of fear in me. So I just overworked. That's how I overcame that fear. And I just felt really cheap. I really felt like, God, this company is just treating me like a number on a spreadsheet. And as much as I love making money, I love making money because it's mostly a scoreboard. It's the result of influencing and impacting and taking care of people and being trusted and becoming referred. Money's not the motivator. I feel like very few people are actually money motivated, Dave. I don't feel like a lot of people in the morning wake up and go, money, 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 But I certainly was at a crossroads of like, is this really an industry I want to be in? Are these the kind of people I really want to spend time with? Is this going to allow me to be the kind of mother or the kind of wife that I want to be? But I still had this love for all the parts of it. And so I interviewed 9 different mortgage companies at that time. I did just an unbelievable amount of due diligence to figure out where was going to be the right home for me. Like I'm just somebody who doesn't like a lot of change. I'm super loyal. I like to dig in and really build relationships. And at the same time that I found Guild Mortgage, I also hired a coach. And that was kind of the turning point for me, 2010, so on and so forth. And I'll just finish with this part of the story because I think all of it is so relevant to now. But in 2010, I personally closed 94 loans. I hired my first assistant ever, and I started in 2004. So for 6 years, didn't ever make that leap. Didn't even know what that was about. In 2010, I closed 231 loans. And in 2011, I closed 514 loans. So I'd share all that with you because it doesn't matter where we're at right now. It doesn't matter what the market is doing right now. All I know is that if you work a playbook and you stay consistent with that, it's the plays that work. And I've seen it over and over again, Dave, because in the beginning, when I opened my branch, I did not want other loan officers. I thought that loan officers were just, talking out of both ends of their mouths. They didn't know technical data. They threw noodles against the wall. They would just sell anybody a loan to sell them a loan. And that was certainly not who I was. And so I was like, I just want to have a happy little branch with no drama, no BS, like crush it and go home. But God had other plans for me. And shortly after, one loan officer relocated into my office, and eventually Jorge completely changed my mind about, what a professional looks like as a loan officer. And then a realtor begged me to hire Brian Cushing, and I brought on Brian, and then another realtor wanted it. So anyway, slowly over time, have grown and have developed loan officers from scratch, hiring people into an assistant role, teaching them the ropes, realizing that if I could learn this at 23 with no college education, that I could help other people learn as well. And today we have about 25 loan officers in 3 states, and I coach every one of them. And, I'm in the grind with them, talking to builders every day and finding strategically how we continue to win and be the best mortgage team in the business.
Wow, what a story. And some things I want y'all to take away from that is that within a 3-year period, she doubled her business twice. And that is possible. If you're new in the business, maybe what you did last year and the year before, you're not going to double unless you really add to your team or you really add to your database. At the end of the day, you can only, as a referral-based local originator, perform based off of your database. How many people know you, like you, and trust you? How many of those people are like realtors, where they know you, like you, and trust you, and they can refer you a lot of business? So it's data and lead channel, and then it's team. And then, of course, we all know that it's market. It is, interest rates do matter. Market does matter. So one thing I want to, guys, this is unplugged, by the way. So Shayla and I do not have like a headline on this call because we just wanted to kind of freestyle it with you guys. So if you do have questions, put them in chat. And if you're watching this on YouTube, put any questions you have. I'll make sure they get answered. But so Shayla, I think for brand new loan officers, it's kind of cool because they don't have, in fact, I interviewed a guy who's like his 10th month in the business, and he's not, his expectations are not stained by the past 2 years. So for all you new loan officers, it's nothing but good from here on up for you. But I think that a lot of people coming out of the past 2 years, it's about resetting expectations. It's like this is a reset in the mortgage space. And I also think the scoreboard needs to adjust a little bit right now. And so let's do this conversation in 2 parts. Let's do it with how do we survive this market, like ideas to survive, and I've got some, and then how do we do it in a way that we really thrive? And I don't know what 20 years looks like, but I personally have a pretty good view of what it looks like to 2027, let's say. Like, how can we survive today and win till 2027? So let's go into survive the day. You're coaching loan officers. You are part of the team. What's the Shayla Gifford thought on how to survive this market?
Well, of course, it all comes down to mindset and what thoughts that you're going to sponsor and where you're going to place your energy, because where we put our focus, our energy flows. And so every day, are we looking for opportunity? Are we believing that there's opportunity? Are we, really realistic about what the now is? So somebody said to me, actually, it's my boss, Chad, said to me the other day, he said, I've gone back and looked at it. In 2008 was very, very difficult. And I think it was difficult differently for people. For me, it was different because I didn't have a team. I didn't, have 82 employees. I didn't, have a big business or any real responsibilities other than me, but it was still scary and hard and made me question all the time, is this the right industry? And he asked me, he said, if you would have known that at the end of 2008, 2009, that era, that we would have 12 years of the most amazing run, prosperous growth, and the final 2 years would be like fireworks, like what has been, would you sign up for another 2008 again? Would you take that hard again? And I think most of us who've been around that long will be like, hell yes, like times 10, I do it again and again and again. So I think the mindset just has to be like what we've experienced the last 2 years when the market was so favorable is a net result of what we had done the previous 5 years. All the goodwill, all the effort, all the relationships, all the database, everything that we had built for those 5 years, that was the fruit of that labor. Now we get to start again and do that again, because let's be real, most everyone in my database has probably got a 3% interest rate. And there's a lot of people that aren't going to want to sell because they've got a 3% interest rate, but we still have the ability to build that again. And I believe, Dave, that once you have your skills, nobody can take away our skills. That's something that you will never lose. So that's the thing to invest in. That's why you come to calls like this that Dave has. This is why you invest in learning how to do Mortgage Coach, how to have intelligent conversations, how to advise somebody on making good financial decisions. Because whether we're in this industry or another industry, that skill set of being able to connect with somebody on a raw human level, of being able to be vulnerable, of getting people to open up and share with us, to being the professional that's going to guide them, you could take that into any industry, let alone our industry, which I absolutely believe is going to be more fruitful on the other end of this. There will be 30% less loan officers. There will be less companies. There will be more buyers in the future. So I think mindset is a big part of surviving, Dave. And then I think the other big thing is, just from a tactical perspective, is every conversation needs to be documented. You need to use your CRM. You've got to use technology. You've got to be really present in the moment and be really focused on every client, every realtor, like really make an impact not just like fly through the day and go, what happened, but really be here now. And then you need to document what the heck you talked about and put yourself in a position to call that person in a month or 3 months or a year or 3 years or whatever that looks like, because everything compounds. So I'm thinking about people are still reaching out, asking about a refinance. Well, if they're at a 3%, now we're at a 7%, it's not going to make sense. But are you keeping notes on that person? Do you have a watch list for people? If somebody can't qualify today for a $2,900 payment, but they can qualify at $2,300, what would have to happen to make that work for that person? You know, when things turn, do you have a pile of opportunity because you've been intelligent about what you're doing today? So to me, I mean, you got to have money in the bank. You got to have probably 3 months reserves, maybe 6 months reserves. You've got to be smart. You've got to cut personal crap out. We've got to get fiscally fit, not only as companies, but as individuals. That's going to give you staying power. And then if you can get all that noise out of your mind and really say that I am building something compounding, I'm a builder. That's what I am. I'm a builder. I'm building relationships. I'm building database. I'm building future opportunities. That's how I think we survive.
I like it. So three things that came to mind when you said that is fiscally fit, advice fit. You need to be an advisor, and then you need to be a great salesperson. You need to be sales fit. And in my mind, most mortgage professionals today are not sales fit. I do want to make sure I really put an exclamation mark around something Shayla said about using your database. And one of the things now, this is the first time I've interviewed you where I've been the chief innovation officer of MortgageCoach and Sales Boomerang. And so I've obsessed for 2 decades over advice matters. Like, be that mortgage professional where when you say my advice matters, it's tangibly obvious, it's visually obvious. It's like a wow, like this guy knows his shit. I can trust this person. But it's also really clear that you use data and use your CRM. And I think today's mortgage advisor really needs to be thinking about like scheduling the next loan. Like, I know every family, and when I say scheduling the next loan, it's not based on date. It's based off of goals, and it's based off of equity, and it's based off of debt. So that you've got a CRM that not only, because rates will go down. It's not a question of if, it's when and how fast. And rates will go up again. Like, that's just the business we're in. And you're managing that mortgage. One of the things we talk a lot about MortgageCoach Sales Boomerang is mortgages under management and building a database that becomes this predictable source of loans. And it's based on rates. And then it's also like, do you know which of your families want to move up and have a second home? Do you know which of your families have a kid graduating from high school, and maybe while that kid goes to college, they buy a duplex or a triplex, and you're the one that plants that seed. And when that kid graduates from college, you're the professional reaching out to them and saying, you know what? If they didn't do something in college, everybody wants homeownership on the other side of college. Or if they didn't go to college, how do we help that family achieve homeownership and financial freedom through managing mortgages, through building wealth with real estate? And so Shayla, I don't need to ask you if you agree with that. You're like,
yes.
Well, and but I do want to ask you this, because I think that first-time home buyers have never been more important. And for the next 2 years to survive, like, we need to be, if you're a local referral base, you need to be like the first-time home buyer badass. I know you agree with that, but what are your thoughts on how someone could take that idea and actually kill it as a first-time home buyer specialist?
Well, I also want to highlight what it means to be a professional salesperson. So let's just put that on the side there, because I think that was a really big comment that you made that deserves some breakdown. When it comes to first-time home buyers, obviously it comes to really educating people and being passionate about it. I mean, I remember over the course of my career, people going, "Oh, I don't like first-time home buyers. I've just never understood that, because I don't think there's anything more gratifying than showing up at a closing and knowing that you made that happen for somebody. You know, and I hear it over and over again for people, like, where have you found the most joy in your job? And it wasn't closing X millions and getting X paycheck. It's like, really, I helped this person build their credit, you know, get through a couple multiple offers, get into a house. And like, that is the most gratifying part of our job, especially when the appreciation comes back from the customer. We get those reviews online. You know, they send us the bundt cake or the 6-pack of beers, or whatever relationship that we've built throughout the process. So what I think is really important for first-time home buyers is for them to realize the incredible opportunity that we have right now, that truly the people who have 20% down or have bought another property or whatever, they kind of feel like, well, I can sit back, I can wait, I'm not going to jump in on this. Whereas first-time home buyers, when you need to buy a home, you really want to buy a home, you've got to be swimming upstream when everybody else is, you know, on the sidelines or maybe swimming downstream. So I think it's just really teaching people that this is when those opportunities are made. And then obviously from a tactical perspective, if I was helping my brother be a first-time home buyer, or my sister be a first-time home buyer, I would definitely use a temporary buy down all day long. You know, we're seeing builders now offer 6% incentives. You know, so if I'm sitting down with somebody and they say, gosh, I'm getting $30,000 from the builder to get you this 5-point-something% interest rate. Yeah, that sounds good and that feels good. And if that's what gets the sale done and gets them under contract, then great. But I'm not going to let them sign their loan disclosures without saying, just, you got to consider one more option. Like, what about the strategy where instead of taking a 5.75, you take a 6.25, and then you use, I don't know, $10,000 to go. Year one's at 4.25, year two's at 5.25, and year three on is at 6.25. Yeah, your end rate's a little bit higher, but let me tell you, when rates are at 4 something, you're going to call to refinance. And that $30,000 that you invested one time of the builder's money is gone. Whereas that temporary buy down is money set aside to subsidize your payments. If you refinance in a year or 18 months, the money left over gets credited back to you. I just think those kind of conversations to get people to think differently, because from a sales strategy perspective, and I work with a lot of builders, they're thinking, what's going to get someone through the doors? How do I drive traffic? What is the story that I need to tell to get people in here? And this is how resale agents think as well. And a lot of times it is just price. If they see a house with a 3 in front of it instead of a 4 or 5 in front of it, will drive traffic. But as we all know, as advisors, there's a much bigger picture here that can help somebody really change their financial picture. You know, what about putting money towards debt pay down and putting 10% down and buying out their MI, or even financing in their MI and paying off their debt? Like, some of these things are just really radically shift somebody's ability to live comfortably, to, you know, start a 401k, to do some incredible things that if we don't open our mouth and teach them, they're just going to go right back to the habits and behaviors that got them here in the first place.
So I love where this just landed, because, you know, really what we did is there was a convergence of being sales fit. You know, in today's world as a mortgage professional, it's very different than what it was last year. You know, the previous 2 years were volume markets, and sales fit was just how quickly could you quote a rate, take a loan, and put it through the process. And today, sales fit is your ability to come up with affordability solutions for families and get people off the fence and into escrow. So as Mr. Mortgage Coach, I love that, because it's making advice a cornerstone to the habits and the success skills of sales. So I do know you've got a couple TCAs. I don't know, it's either close to the time for you to walk through a strategy, but yeah. I would throw out to anyone watching this right now, if you were ever on the fence of, you know, whether it's using Mortgage Coach or being advice versus price loan officer, you don't really have a choice in this market. If you really want to be valuable to agents, you need to be able to help solve the affordability gap for families and for sellers. So Shayla, I know you've got some scenarios there. It looks like there are people that are on your team.
Yeah, I want I want to brag about one of my loan officers, Amanda Ray. She's done over 100 million for the last couple of years, but Amanda's one of the hardest workers that I've got, and she's just diligent to the basics. And when she took on MortgageCoach, like, she really learned it, and she thinks strategically on how can I demonstrate something that's going to help a buyer and get the agent to understand the way in which I'm helping a buyer. Now, I do a sales call every Monday for every one of my loan officers. We show up at 9:30. I give some words of inspiration, motivation, tactics, but most importantly, everybody goes around and says their numbers, how many leads, how many deals, and how many butts in the seat. Because I believe we're going to be the best team in the business, we've got to show up and we got to be accountable and we've got to know our numbers. Well, this morning, Amanda had 21 leads last week. You know, she did make the point that generally you get 21 leads and you get 7 or 8 deals out of 21 leads. And now she's doing 21 leads to get 3 deals. But the point is that some of my other very top loan officers that have traditionally been super successful are getting 5 or 6 leads. And so I just can't help but say this, that I really think the loan officers who take to heart what we're talking about being advice driven and being a sales strategist, are just going to separate, right? Like, this is what's happening. Because if you're a professional salesperson and you're making the calls and you're having the meetings and you're having the lunches, you're having the presentations, but you're not getting those results, then sometimes you got to think about, well, it's the quality of what's being said. It's the quality of the advice that is going to make all the difference. Because just filling up a calendar and a sheet with a lot of activity, that's quantity. And that just doesn't cut it. It's really about the quality. So I just kind of want to show you 2 things that Amanda's recently used, because she's getting the business and it's really inspiring to see. This first TCA is just, advising to somebody, well, what would the rate or what would the payment be before you asked for this price reduction, right? Because this buyer was so intent on asking for this price reduction of $22,900. And, there's your payment. And she puts that, she's going to peg everything to that. So then she says, well, what is your payment after getting that price reduction? And the payment goes down by $133 a month. And then she says, but what if you offer $12,000 more, but you get a seller credit? So don't take the full $22,000 price reduction. How about only get $12,000 off the price, but take the other $10,000 and buy down your interest rate? Combined strategy, same amount of money, but how do you use the money? And there you go. The payment is $334 less expensive. Now, if that buyer is not totally motivated and going, wow, like you just twisted my brain into some other way of thinking, and that agent isn't going, wow, this is a cool way of putting a deal together, we're wildly mistaken, because it seems simple. And I think a lot of you that have been following along, and Dave has the best, most unbelievable leaders that he's constantly bringing to the table. But are you doing it? Are you doing this strategy? Because if you're not, it's the simple difference of that pre-approval could have been a 7.5 out of 10. This makes it a 9 out of 10. A wow, something that's memorable. Any comments on that one, Dave, before I move to the next one?
Other than just the goal in today's market is to shift the buyer's perspective. The news is creating fear. The dialogue that people are having is creating fear and uncertainty. And your ability as a mortgage professional to shift that conversation into the future, by the way, based on numbers, not like hypothesis of what might happen. We're not talking about putting people into houses they don't afford. We're talking about just shifting their perspective. Like Shayla said, be the sales strategist. So no, I dig it. What else you got?
Okay, this one is just not just but it's a 3-2-1 buy down, right? It's again how we present it. But I like I like the way Amanda's done this, especially reading from left to right. I think those little things matter, guys. Like, I want you to get anal about your TCAs and go, does that make sense? Like, in preparation from this call, I asked for a few, and some of them don't just clearly make sense to me. And I'm thinking, just think, how does the brain read right to left? You know, how does somebody make sense of this stuff? Because it's those little tiny shifts that we do that make a difference. So here she says, okay, well, year one, your rate is 3% lower. Year two, it's 2% lower. Year three, it's 1% lower. And then in years 4 through 30, you're at your note rate. So even the labeling matters, because it's got to be so simple for the consumer. They've got to like really internalize this. And then you could go ahead.
No, I just said super clean and simple.
Super clean. So then you see the interest rates here, 3, 4, 5, and 6.875. And then you see the payment savings, year one of $724, $495, $253. And what I found interesting is that Amanda just did the savings over 12 months to make it really simple. That year one, you're saving 12 grand, year two, you're saving 8 grand, year three, you're saving 4 grand. And you can see the reverse of this, of how much interest do you pay in year 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, something that probably everybody is playing around with. I hope you're playing around with this. I hope you're explaining this every single time. But are you doing it this way? To me, this is so black and white. It's simple. It really allows somebody to digest it. And an agent should be able to figure out, well, how much seller credit is that? Basically just add up the savings over 12 months, the orange boxes, and you know that you need $24,000 from the seller. There you go, right? So anyway, just nice job to Amanda. I think she's just killing it. By the way, you can see that she presented this, says high buyer of serenity. So this is actually on a potential listing. So this is a way that she's given this tool to a realtor, for a realtor to then talk to their seller, the realtor to talk to a buyer about saying, hey, we're willing to give you $24,000. Here's what that could mean to you. Here's how much you save year 1, year 2, year 3. So it's not that these TCAs are always to a buyer in their specific scenario. It's that, how do we educate? How do we use this incredible tool that demonstrates the products that we have that are more technical in nature, without the realtors like rolling their eyes in the back of their head and going, oh, I hate numbers. What am I doing? So just again, I can't say enough about Amanda. By the way, Amanda started as, I think she was my second or third assistant ever. She's been with me for 10 years now. And, you know, it's just, it's what this whole industry speaks to. Even though Amanda's got a master's degree, and I think she's really sharp, she's just a regular girl like I am. And she has put her whole self into this business and has been able to build an incredible career. She's been able to make over 7 figures several years in a row. And she started at $15 an hour. Talk about the ability that we have to change people's lives and leadership. It's just so moving. It's one of the reasons that I continue to grow my team and find more Amandas, because it's just so moving to me. But she's earned her success, every bit of it.
So a couple of things. I want to, one, make sure you guys are doing exactly what she just showed, and that is using mortgage coach strategies to help realtors sell homes. I interviewed Hunter Marquardt last week, and one of the things he's doing with everybody he's coaching right now is going out and educating realtors one-on-one, one-on-one meetings, and they're using Mortgage Coach. And they're identifying properties that agent might have. If it's a listing agent, a property that is in that window where it looks and smells like it might have a price exception or a price reduction coming, and he's mocking up TCAs. Nicole Ruth, who I interviewed out of Denver a few months ago, she's creating 3-minute videos for agents. So this is a huge opportunity to recruit agents, because they're in pain. They're looking for solutions, and they're looking for mortgage professionals that can help them. So before we run out of time, Shayla, you mentioned sales meetings, and I always think you're a great leader at, not only did you train like a pro to be as good as you are, but you put you bring that leadership to your team and they train like a pro. So what is a sales meeting? You said every Monday, 9 o'clock, is it 1 hour?
No,
Is
no,
it
no.
half
That's just our sales call. Those are 15 minutes every Monday. It's
okay, so that's not a sales training meeting.
no.
Got it. Well,
No,
just
that's
go ahead.
that's much more of an accountability. Let's get fired up. Let's be united. Let's go kick some butt. Kind of a call. We're hosting a LO call every Friday with one of the top producers, either from our internal coaching program, Elevate, or from one of the top producers that's just in my crew. I think I had like 6 or 7 loan officers cross 60 or 70 million last year. So we have an unbelievable group. It's like, you are who you hang around. And so if you hang around a bunch of super driven people, it's incredible what kind of results can happen in even small markets like Reno. But yeah, we're getting down in the nitty gritty now to talk about like, okay, we just got a new product where we allow a seller to lock in a rate on their listing. So how do you take that and position that to a buyer, to an agent, to a seller? How do you educate on it? How do you what are you going to do with this opportunity? Because we're all given hopefully new products and opportunities and technologies. But just like this 3-2-1, are you sitting it down with your loan officers, if you're a manager or leader, and saying, hey, show me how you're talking to people about a 3-2-1. And is it plain as simple or is it confusing? And are we checking each other with that? So I just think, we are fortunate in this industry to be paid ridiculously well. Many of us earn more than a doctor's salary of doing this, but we don't do the training to train like a pro. And so many people have had just exorbitant, incredible results. But I got to say, it's because they were lucky, because the market was there to allow us to be lazy, lackadaisical, half-assed salespeople. And I just think now more than ever, we have to tighten that up. We have to actually listen to ourselves after a meeting, go, okay, what was my intention? How did I want the client to feel? Was I a really good listener? Did I stop and take notes? Did I really listen, or was I trying to respond? Was I compassionate to their needs? Was I trying to jam something down their throat? What kind of person, what kind of professional do I really want to be? And am I showing up to be that person? So anyway, so that's the kind of sales training that we're doing, Dave. I also do coaching in small groups with every one of my loan officers. And so we're talking about this stuff all the time, especially if we're saying, okay, Amanda's gotten 21 leads this last week. Where are your leads coming from? What are you saying? What have you been saying on your Monday calls? Are you doing any group presentations? What are you talking about? Where are those presentations? So I think just being in a culture of sharing and being around other people that are abundance mindset, where it's not like, I want to chop your legs off and it's a toxic environment and everybody's kind of hiding like that. That is just not going to work in this environment. We all need each other. And I think, Dave, you're one of the greatest leaders in sharing that within our industry, that there are so many people that actually do want to give and share and teach and educate and, share everything that they know how to do and what's working for them.
So one thought I had when I did the halftime report, I just think it's important, we need to measure different metrics. How many loans we close, super important. What the volume is, super important. But I think more important is, what's your conversion rate? What's your batting average? How many leads did you bring in? I look in a lot of cases, when you look at how many basis points people spend in price exceptions, is like a sales score. So loan officers that are highly profitable and not giving away the farm and price exceptions, it's through value. They're having valuable conversations. They're delivering a different experience to the consumer than loan officers that are, giving away the most in price exceptions. So I think scoring is differently. Since I, became part of Sales Boomerang, I think growing your database. How many people did you add to your database this week? And what are your thoughts on some of the most important things to take to scoreboard, other than loans closed and volume? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think conversion's huge, and knowing your conversion, and also just being realistic that like Amanda said, well, if the new number is 3 deals a week, then I still have to get my 21 leads. And just where am I going to get them? How do I adjust my sites? Right. So I think constantly adjusting the business plan, but then watching it at the end of every month, going back and saying, okay, this was my business plan. This is where all my leads were going to come from. These are the activities that I plan on doing to do those leads. Again, am I a professional salesperson? Professional salesperson has a plan. They review the plan. They see what's working and how to maximize that and continue that it's not just by luck. It's not just by a whim. It's not by personality. And what I hear all the time from real estate agents is like, gosh, a lot of loan officers, they're good for a few months. Like they come on the job and they're just all gusto and all talk. And then, 6 months later, I can't get a hold of them. Right. So a professional salesperson is consistent, on purpose, by design, reviewing, tweaking, and, figuring out and asking for feedback. Like, how am I coming off? Do I come off as cocky? Do I come off as compassionate? Do I, what are my intentions? So I don't know. A lot of that stuff is self-reflective, Dave, but that's where I found my most growth. When I got involved in sales, I just didn't even like people. I definitely was impatient and very much about the transaction and kind of self-protective. I mean, all the things. So I've learned how to be vulnerable. I've learned how to be a great listener. I've learned how to really look for people's greatness and their brilliance. I've learned how to love people. I've all these skill sets I've learned. The thing that's consistent through all of it is just me being a driven chick, but I've taken that drive to say, I want to use my drive to get good at this thing and then to get good at that thing. And I think, one of my greatest beliefs is that everything can be learned, everything can be attained. But you have to really want it. And then you have to do the work. You have to journal every day and rate yourself. Like, was I kind to people? Was I smiling? Was I a good listener? And if you stay on it with yourself, you will find that eventually you create this, you're unconsciously competent. That's who you are. You've actually stepped into that character, that behavior. But Dave, before we jump off, can I give you one more TCA that I think is really powerful? Okay. This is from Ryan Erickson, who's just one of our studs down in Las Vegas, and talk about a guy who embraces technology. And I just really, really love what Ryan's doing. So this is his single best strategy that he loves about the pre-approval meeting. And he does this with every single pre-approval because he's a professional salesperson. It's a process, is what he does. And he not only gives it to the buyer, but he's trained the agents and gives it to the agents so they know what we're working with. So he always puts this current plan on the left column, and the current plan is what they've most recently talked about, because obviously that's going to change all the time. So that's always on the left. Then the goal payment is what they said they wanted their payment to be. So in this case, the client wanted their payment to be around $2,200. Okay. And then their max payment is what they felt comfortable with. Like, I really want a $2,200 payment, but I think I can go to $2,500. And then the pre-approval max is obviously what their max qualification is based on, their debt to income ratios, so on and so forth. So you can imagine, especially now when our rates keep going up and up and up and up and up, that you've got to redo pre-approvals and you have to rehab these conversations with people. Well, the middle two columns stay the same. I mean, that is where people are at, and you keep honoring where they're at, where they started out, where their goal was, what is their ideal max. But then you get to relook at the current, and if you've got to adjust their max because interest rates have gone up and their ability to buy has come down, you're constantly being able to demonstrate what they can do. And I think it's an easy format. It's something that you continue updating so that you keep talking on the same platform. And it's a way that the agents can really be a part of that conversation. So again, we all talk about, do a TCA at pre-approval, do a TCA at locking, giving people different strategies and options. But this, again, makes it so black and white that this is one way to label it, to demonstrate it. And I think that's what being a true advisor and mortgage coach is like, really think about, what does my pre-approval meeting look like? What do I want it to say? What's my presentation? And then just do it the same way every time. If you're not getting the conversion, if you're getting way more questions than you should, whatever, then you could start going, what am I missing? What do I need to add into that? But anyway, I loved what Ryan did there. Again, I'm a fool for simplicity and being able to understand, so that we can be not only advisors, but advisors that people really can relate to.
So yeah, I've interviewed Ryan before, and he is an awesome mortgage strategist. And the thing I took away from all three of these is that the mortgage professional isn't selling their product, rates, and fees. They're selling the problems they're solving for people. And every buyer, every seller, every agent has a lot of problems in this market. Affordability is a problem. Making informed decisions is a problem. And so they're selling a service. I would put it out there. I offer this for some of our clients. And Shayla, if you ever want me to do it with your group, but I would put out there, guys, every month you should be doing peer training around how are we solving problems in today's market. Showcase some of your best loan officers. I love this interview, Shayla. When I've interviewed you in the past, it's all been about you and your team and what you're doing. But I love it how you hey, you went to some people on your team. Hey, what are some strategies that you think, Savage is going to interview me? What should we talk about? And you got some cool ideas. So I would love to do more interviews like that, because at the end of the day, my goal is to train the leaders to be great leaders. And to be a great leader in this market, you need to train your team on how to solve problems in this market. And Mortgage Coach is a tool within that story. It's not the only tool, but it's an important tool.
I actually coach. I actually coach all the branch managers at Gill Mortgage now, and that's my next level of growth is growing more branch managers that I personally mentor and coach and manage. And it's been a year now, and it's been one of the best blessings of my career, because in order for me to feel worthy of leading and coaching, 250 incredible professionals that have been doing this a long time and that really, really care, it just always keeps me on my toes to continue, improving, growing, and also living into everything that I believe and teach. But I just think now more than ever, as a leader in this industry, you can't just show up and deal with the transactions in your branch and expect a paycheck. That's not the value that is needed. The value that is really needed is to be a sales strategist and to help our loan officers win and help them win in that sales strategy and in those conversations. And so I don't know if you're a leader listening to this and you're not leading in that way. If you're showing up and kind of, managing transactions, making sure loans close on time and all that, that's not the kind of manager or leader that our loan officers need right now. They need more from us, and it's our time to really step it up and bring that value.
I love it. Well, it's been an awesome conversation, Shayla. Is there anything else you want to share? Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I just love that you do this, Dave, and you always make me better. And last week we talked when I was kind of sick and under the weather, and I still was totally fired up and inspired spending time with you. So thank you for being so consistent in what you do and for being just a man on a mission. I think, it's really attractive. And I would just say, I hope everybody gets on a mission like you are, Dave. No borrower left behind, and be an advisor, because it's inspiring. Makes me want to be better just being around you.
Well, appreciate you, Shayla. Thanks for being such a change agent, an important change agent in this industry, guys. Big times are ahead. Maybe it get harder before it gets easier. But guys, put your farmer's hat, plant seeds, build databases, build skills, get better at being a professional mortgage professional, and it will thrive again. So hopefully you got value. If you liked it, give us a like. We'll put links to some of those TCAs that Shayla shared. And everybody have an awesome day. Thank you so much, Shayla.
Thanks, guys. Have a good